When the man who destroyed her came back to finish the job, he didn't know she had already risen from the ashes. Elena Cross stood in the center of a crowded mall, her ex-husband's hand still raised, his cruel laughter echoing off marble floors until the building went silent. Black SUVs pulled up outside. A man stepped out, and the air itself seemed to freeze. Trent's face drained of color. He had come to humiliate a broken woman. Instead, he had just made the worst mistake of his life. Stay with me until the end. Hit like and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The Greenfield Mall was packed that Saturday afternoon, the kind of crowd that made every aisle feel like a slow-moving river. Shoppers drifted between storefronts, children tugged at their parents' sleeves, teenagers clustered near the food court with oversized drinks and careless laughter. The air smelled like cinnamon pretzels and new leather. Overhead, pop music hummed from hidden speakers, blending into the hum of 100 conversations. Elena Cross walked alone, a small shopping bag in one hand, her phone in the other. She wore a simple cream sweater and dark jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She didn't look like someone with money. She didn't look like someone with power. She looked like what she had been for most of her life, invisible. She had come to pick up a watch she'd left for repair, nothing more. The errand was mundane, forgettable. She wasn't expecting trouble. She wasn't looking for anyone. That was her first mistake. Well, look who it is! The voice came from behind her, sharp and mocking, cutting through the noise like a knife. Elena's shoulders tensed. She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. That voice had haunted her for years, buried itself in her worst memories, echoed in her nightmares. Trent Walker. She stopped walking. For a moment she considered pretending she hadn't heard him, considered walking faster, disappearing into the crowd. But she was done running. She had been done for a long time. Elena turned slowly. Trent stood a few feet away, arms crossed, a smug grin plastered across his face. He looked older than she remembered, softer around the middle, a few gray hairs creeping into his temples, but his eyes were the same. Cold, entitled, cruel. Trent. Her voice was flat, emotionless. She didn't give him the satisfaction of fear. "Didn't think I'd see you here," he said, stepping closer. "Thought you'd crawled off somewhere to rot." People were starting to notice. A woman with a stroller slowed down, glancing between them. A man at a nearby bench lowered his newspaper. Elena could feel the attention gathering like a storm. "I'm not interested in talking to you," she said evenly. "Move on." Trent's grin widened. "Move on? That's rich, coming from you. You still pretending you're somebody now?" She didn't answer. She didn't owe him anything, but Trent wasn't done. He never was. He took another step, closing the space between them, and his voice dropped into something nastier, something meant to cut deep. "You think anyone's forgotten what you were? What you are? A nobody. A charity case. I dragged you out of the dirt, and you couldn't even keep yourself together long enough to be grateful." Elena's jaw tightened. She felt the old shame trying to crawl back in, the voice in her head that had spent years agreeing with him. But that voice was quieter now, weaker. "You didn't drag me out of anything," she said softly. "You put me there." Trent laughed, loud and sharp. A few more people stopped. The crowd was growing. "Is that the story you're telling yourself now? That I'm the bad guy? You were pathetic when I met you, and you're still pathetic now. Look at you, still dressing like a broke college student, still walking around like you matter." Elena didn't flinch. She met his eyes, steady and unflinching. "I'm done with this conversation," she said. She turned to walk away. Trent grabbed her arm. It wasn't a gentle touch. His fingers dug in hard, yanking her back toward him. She stumbled, her bag slipping from her hand and hitting the floor. The crowd gasped. Someone pulled out a phone. "Don't you walk away from me," Trent hissed. His face was inches from hers now, his breath sour with coffee and anger. "You don't get to walk away from me. Not after everything." "Let go," Elena said, her voice still calm, still controlled. He didn't. Instead, he shoved her, hard. Elena stumbled backward, her shoulder slamming into a storefront window. Pain shot through her arm. The crowd gasped louder this time. A security guard somewhere in the distance started moving toward them, but too slow, too far. Trent stepped forward, his voice rising now, no longer caring who heard. "You think you're better than me? You think you're something now? You're nothing. You were nothing when I met you, and you'll be nothing when you die. Elena straightened slowly, her hand pressed against the glass behind her. Her heart was pounding, but her face was stone. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't give him what he wanted. She just looked at him. And then the doors opened. It started as a low rumble, the kind you feel before you hear. The murmur of the crowd shifted, heads turned toward the mall entrance. The sound of engines, deep, powerful, unmistakable, echoed through the building. 3 black SUVs pulled up outside, moving in perfect formation. The kind of vehicles that didn't belong at a suburban shopping mall. The kind that made people nervous without knowing why. Trent's grin faltered. What the hell? The doors of the first SUV opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit that looked like it cost more than most people's cars. His face was sharp, unreadable, his eyes scanning the crowd with the precision of someone who had spent his life measuring threats. His presence was immediate, undeniable. The kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to command a room. Damien Vale. The crowd parted without being asked. People stepped back instinctively, some of them recognizing him, most of them just sensing that this was not someone to be in the way of. Damien's eyes found Elena instantly. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his gaze. Something cold and deadly. He crossed the distance between them in long, deliberate strides. 2 men in suits followed close behind, their hands resting near their waists in a way that left no doubt they were armed. Trent's face went pale. Who the hell are you? Damien didn't look at him. He stopped in front of Elena, his hand reaching out to gently touch her shoulder where she'd hit the glass. Are you hurt? His voice was low, controlled, but there was steel underneath. Elena shook her head. I'm fine. Damien's jaw tightened. He turned his head slowly, his gaze landing on Trent for the first time. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. You put your hands on her, Damien said. It wasn't a question. Trent took a step back, his bravado crumbling. Look, man, I don't know who you think you are, but this is between me and my ex-wife. Your ex-wife? Damien's voice was quiet, almost conversational. The woman you just shoved. The woman you just humiliated in front of 100 people. Trent stammered, his face flushing red. She's nobody. She's mine. The words hung in the air like a blade. Trent's mouth opened and closed. The color drained from his face completely now. He looked around wildly, as if searching for an exit, but Damien's men had already positioned themselves on either side of him. I didn't know. You didn't know, Damien repeated softly. He took one step closer. You didn't know that the woman you destroyed, the woman you threw away, is now under my protection. You didn't know that touching her means touching me. You didn't know that you just made the last mistake of your miserable life. Trent was shaking now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean... You did mean it. Damien's voice never rose, never wavered. You meant every word, every insult, every hand you put on her. You enjoyed it. Trent's knees buckled slightly. He looked like he might pass out. Damien leaned in, his voice dropping so low that only Trent could hear. But Elena, standing just a few feet away, caught the edge of it. If you ever come near her again, if you so much as think her name, I will make sure you disappear. Not quickly, not cleanly. Do you understand me? Trent nodded frantically, his face slick with sweat. Damien straightened, adjusting his cuffs with calm precision. He turned back to Elena, his expression softening just a fraction. Let's go, he said quietly. Elena nodded. She bent down to pick up her bag, her hand steady despite everything. Damien's hand rested lightly on her lower back as they walked toward the exit together. The crowd parted again. No one spoke. No one moved. Behind them, Trent collapsed onto a bench, his hands shaking, his face buried in his palm. The security guard finally arrived, too late to do anything but stare. Tut. The ride back was silent. Elena sat in the back seat of the SUV, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the passing buildings outside. Damien sat beside her, his posture relaxed, but his jaw still tight. You didn't have to do that, Elena said finally. Damien glanced at her. Yes, I did. He's not worth it. Maybe not, but you are. Elena didn't know what to say to that. She looked down at her hands, at the faint bruise already forming on her wrist where Trent had grabbed her. Damien followed her gaze, his expression darkened again. "I should have done worse," he said quietly. Elena shook her head. "You did enough. More than enough." Damien didn't argue, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand clenched into a fist before he forced it to relax. They pulled up to a large house on the edge of the city, a sprawling estate surrounded by wrought iron gates and tall hedges. It was Damien's home, though Elena still didn't quite think of it as hers, even after months of living there. The driver opened the door. Damien stepped out first, then offered Elena his hand. She took it, letting him help her out of the car. Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Elena could feel the weight of the day pressing down on her, the adrenaline starting to fade, leaving exhaustion in its wake. "I'm going to take a shower," she said softly. Damien nodded. "I'll be in my office if you need me." Elena headed upstairs, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. She closed the bedroom door behind her and leaned against it, letting out a long, shaky breath. She had handled it. She had faced Trent and hadn't broken. She had stood her ground. But the truth was, she was still shaking inside. Downstairs, Damien sat at his desk, a glass of whiskey in one hand, his phone in the other. He scrolled through messages, reports, updates from his people. Business as usual. But his mind kept going back to the mall, to Trent's hands on Elena, to the fear in her eyes, even if she'd hidden it well. He set the glass down and dialed a number. The line picked up on the second ring. "It's me," Damien said. "I need you to look into someone. Trent Walker. Everything. Where he works, where he lives, who he talks to, who he owes. I want to know every dirty secret he's ever had." There was a pause on the other end, then a low chuckle. "You want me to bury him?" "Not yet," Damien said, "but I want to be ready." "Consider it done." Damien hung up. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Elena didn't know the full extent of what he was. She knew he was wealthy, powerful, connected, but she didn't know the details. She didn't know the things he'd done, the people he'd destroyed, the lines he'd crossed, and he preferred to keep it that way. But if anyone threatened her again, if anyone so much as looked at her wrong, they would learn very quickly what he was capable of. Later that night, Elena came downstairs. She had changed into soft pajamas and pulled her hair into a messy bun. She found Damien in the living room, sitting on the couch with his laptop open, a half-empty glass of whiskey on the table beside him. He looked up when she entered. "Feeling better?" "A little," she admitted. She sat down beside him, tucking her legs under her. "Thank you. For earlier." "You don't need to thank me." "I do, though." Damien closed his laptop and set it aside. He turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "Elena, I need you to understand something," he said. "You're not alone anymore. You don't have to fight your battles by yourself, not while I'm here." Elena's throat tightened. She looked away, blinking back tears she didn't want him to see. "I'm not used to that," she said quietly. "I know." His voice softened. "But you're going to have to get used to it, because I'm not going anywhere." She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Damien reached over and took her hand, his thumb brushing lightly over the bruise on her wrist. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. They sat like that for a long time, the house quiet around them, the city lights glowing faintly through the windows. Elena didn't know what the future held. She didn't know if she could ever fully let go of the past. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to carry it all alone. Across town, Trent Walker sat in his cramped apartment, a bottle of cheap vodka on the table in front of him. His hands were still shaking. His mind kept replaying the scene at the mall. Damien's eyes, his voice, the way the entire building had gone silent. He'd made a mistake. A big one. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found the name he was looking for. Sabrina Cross. He hesitated for a moment, then pressed call. The line rang twice before she picked up. "Trent? What do you want?" Her voice was sharp, impatient. "We need to talk," Trent said. "About Elena and her husband." There was a pause. Then Sabrina's tone shifted, interested now. "I'm listening." Trent took a long drink from the bottle, his mind racing. "I think," he said slowly, "we might have a problem." The next morning, Elena woke to the smell of coffee drifting up from the kitchen. She stretched, wincing slightly at the soreness in her shoulder, then pulled on a robe and headed downstairs. Damien was already up, dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks, his hair still damp from the shower. He looked up when she entered, a faint smile crossing his face. "Morning," he said. "I made coffee." "You're a saint," Elena said, pouring herself a cup. They sat at the kitchen island together, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows. For a moment it felt almost normal, almost peaceful. Then Damien's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his expression tightening. "What is it?" Elena asked. Damien set the phone down carefully. "We have visitors coming later today." Elena frowned. "Who?" "Your family." Her stomach dropped. "What? Why?" Damien's jaw tightened. "I'm not sure yet, but I have a feeling we're about to find out." Elena stared at Damien, her coffee cup frozen halfway to her lips. "My family? Coming here?" "That's what my assistant said. Your stepmother called this morning, asked if they could visit this afternoon." Damien's voice was neutral, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. "Said she wanted to reconnect." Elena set the cup down, her hand trembling slightly. "Monica doesn't reconnect. She collects." "That's what I figured." Damien leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "You want me to tell them no?" Elena wanted to say yes. Every part of her wanted to slam that door shut before it even opened. But something stopped her. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the part of her that still needed to see their faces, to know for sure that they were exactly who she remembered. "Let them come," she said quietly. Damien studied her for a long moment. "You sure?" "No, but let them come anyway." He nodded slowly. "All right, but I'll be right there the entire time." "I know." Elena stood, wrapping her robe tighter around herself. She could feel the old anxiety creeping back in, the kind that used to live in her chest like a permanent weight, the kind that made her second-guess every word, every gesture, every breath. She hated that they could still do that to her. "I need to get dressed," she said, more to herself than to him. Damien caught her wrist gently as she passed. "Elena." She stopped, looking up at him. "You don't owe them anything," he said. "Not your time, not your kindness, not even your attention. If you want them gone, say the word." She nodded, throat tight. "Thank you." He released her, and she headed upstairs, her mind already spinning with scenarios she didn't want to imagine. They arrived at 2 in the afternoon, exactly on time. Elena watched from the upstairs window as a silver sedan pulled up to the gate. The driver's side door opened first, and Monica Cross stepped out. She looked the same, perfectly coiffed blonde hair, expensive sunglasses, a cream-colored blazer that probably cost more than Elena used to make in a month. She moved with the kind of confidence that came from never being told no. The passenger door opened next, and Sabrina emerged. Younger, sharper, dressed in a sleek black dress that hugged every curve. Her dark hair fell in glossy waves over her shoulders. She smiled at something Monica said, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. Elena's stomach twisted. Downstairs, the doorbell rang. Elena took a breath, smoothed down the front of her simple gray dress, and headed down. Damien was already at the door, one hand resting on the handle, waiting. He glanced at her. "Ready?" "No." He opened the door anyway. Monica's smile was bright, practiced, perfect. "Elena, darling, it's been too long." She swept forward like she owned the place. Arms outstretched for a hug Elena had no intention of giving. Elena stepped back instinctively, and Monica's arms dropped, her smile flickering for just a second before snapping back into place. Of course, Monica said smoothly. "I understand. It has been a while." Sabrina hung back, her eyes scanning the entryway, the chandelier, the marble floors. Calculating, always calculating. "This is a beautiful home," Sabrina said, her voice sweet as honey. "You've done well for yourself, Elena." "It's Damien's home," Elena said flatly. "Of course." Sabrina's smile didn't waver. "And you must be Damien Vale. We've heard so much about you." Damien didn't offer his hand. "Have you?" Monica laughed, a light, tinkling sound. "All good things, I assure you. We're so happy that Elena has found someone who appreciates her." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. "Let's sit down," Damien said, his tone leaving no room for argument. He gestured toward the living room. They followed, Monica and Sabrina settling onto the couch like they belonged there, like this was just another social visit. Elena sat across from them in an armchair, Damien standing beside her, his hand resting lightly on the back of her seat. Monica leaned forward, clasping her hands together. "Elena, sweetheart, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, and I know things were difficult for you after your father passed." Elena's jaw tightened. Difficult. That was one word for it. "But I want you to know," Monica continued, her voice dripping with sincerity, "that I've always cared about you. Your family, and family should stick together." Sabrina nodded earnestly. "We've missed you, Elena. Really." Elena said nothing. She just watched them, her face unreadable. Monica's smile faltered slightly. "We heard about what happened at the mall yesterday, with Trent. That must have been awful for you." "It was handled," Elena said coldly. Of course," Monica glanced at Damien, her eyes gleaming. "And we're so grateful that you have someone like Damien to protect you. It's comforting to know you're in good hands." Damien's expression didn't change, but Elena could feel the tension radiating off him. Sabrina leaned forward, her voice soft. "Elena, I want to apologize for not being there for you when you needed us. When he left you, we should have done more." Elena's hands clenched in her lap. "You did plenty." "We want to make it right," Monica said quickly. "We want to be part of your life again, a real part. Don't we, Sabrina?" "Absolutely." Sabrina's eyes were wide, earnest. "You're our family, Elena." Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. She looked at Monica, then at Sabrina, and saw nothing but lies, nothing but masks. "Why are you really here?" Elena asked quietly. Monica blinked, her smile freezing. "What do you mean, dear? You didn't care about me when I was homeless. You didn't care when I was hungry. You didn't care when Trent threw me out with nothing." Elena's voice was steady, cutting. "So why do you care now?" Monica's face flushed. "That's not fair, Elena. We tried to help." "You slammed the door in my face." The room went silent. Sabrina shifted uncomfortably. Monica's mouth opened and closed, searching for words. "That was a misunderstanding," Monica said finally. "I was going through a difficult time myself." "No." Elena stood, her hands shaking. "You don't get to rewrite history. You don't get to show up here and pretend we're family. We're not." Monica stood as well, her composure cracking. "Elena, please. I know I made mistakes, but get out." Damien's voice cut through the room like a blade. He hadn't moved, but his presence suddenly filled every corner of the space. Monica turned to him, her eyes wide. "Mr. Vale, surely we can—" "You heard her! Get out!" Monica's face went pale. She looked at Elena, then back at Damien, then at Sabrina, who was already standing, her purse clutched tightly in her hands. "We're just trying to make amends," Monica said, her voice trembling now. "Elena is family." "She's my family," Damien said, his voice low and deadly. "Not yours. Not anymore." Monica's mouth snapped shut. She looked at Elena one last time, something ugly flickering in her eyes before she turned and walked toward the door. Sabrina followed, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. At the door, Sabrina paused, glancing back over her shoulder. "We'll be in touch, Elena, whether you want us to or not." Then they were gone. The door closed, and the house fell silent. Elena stood there, her chest heaving, her hands still trembling. She felt like she'd just run a marathon. Damien moved to her side, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You okay?" "I don't know," she admitted. "That was strange." "Strange how?" "They didn't come here to apologize. They wanted something." Damien nodded slowly. "I got that impression too." Elena looked up at him. "Do you know what it was?" "Not yet, but I will." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the visit over and over. Monica's smile, Sabrina's eyes, the way they'd looked at Damien like he was a prize they wanted to claim. Around midnight, she gave up. She slipped out of bed, pulled on a sweater, and padded downstairs. The house was dark except for a faint light coming from Damien's office. She knocked softly. "Come in," his voice called. Elena opened the door. Damien was sitting at his desk, his laptop open, papers scattered across the surface. He looked tired, the kind of tired that came from too many late nights and too many problems. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Not really." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Join the club." Elena sat, pulling her knees up to her chest. "What are you working on?" "Background checks. Your stepmother and sister." He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. "Wanted to see what I could dig up." "Find anything?" "More than I expected." He turned the laptop toward her. "Monica's been living beyond her means for the last 2 years. Credit card debt, missed payments, threatened foreclosure. She's drowning." Elena's stomach sank. "And Sabrina?" Damien's expression darkened. "That's where it gets interesting. Sabrina's been moving money. A lot of it. In and out of accounts I can't quite trace yet. But the patterns are there. She's involved in something." "Involved how?" "I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to find out." Elena hugged her knees tighter. "They want your money. That's why they came here." "Probably, but I think it's more than that." Damien closed the laptop. "I think they're looking for a way in, to me, to my world." Elena's blood ran cold. "Why would they want that?" "Because my world is valuable. To the right people." He stood, moving around the desk to sit on the edge in front of her. "Elena, there are people out there who would pay a lot of money for access to me, for information, for leverage. You think Monica and Sabrina would? I think they do whatever it takes to save themselves. And if that means selling you out or selling me out, they won't hesitate." Elena felt sick. "I brought them here. I let them in." "Hey." Damien's voice softened. He reached out, tilting her chin up so she had to look at him. "You didn't know. And even if you had, you have every right to face them. This isn't your fault." "It feels like it is." "Well, it's not." He stood, offering his hand. "Come on, you need sleep." Elena let him pull her to her feet. They walked upstairs together, the house silent around them. At her bedroom door, she paused. "Damien?" "Yeah?" "Be careful. With them. With all of this." He smiled faintly. "Always am." But as Elena closed her door and climbed back into bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. Something they weren't ready for. Across town, Sabrina Cross sat in a dimly lit bar, nursing a vodka tonic. The place was half empty, the kind of dive where nobody asked questions. Perfect for meetings you didn't want anyone to know about. She checked her phone. 2 minutes past 11. He was late. Then the door opened and Trent Walker walked in. He looked worse than she remembered. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, his face pale and drawn. He spotted her in this corner booth and made his way over, sliding into the seat across from her. "You look like hell," Sabrina said. "Thanks. You look great too." Trent signaled the bartender for a drink. "This better be important." "It is." Sabrina leaned forward, her voice low. "I went to see Elena today, at her new husband's house." Trent's face darkened. "And?" "And it's worse than we thought. Damien Vale isn't just rich, Trent. He's connected. Serious connected. The kind of connected that makes people disappear." Trent's drink arrived. He downed half of it in one gulp. "So what are we supposed to do? Just let her live happily ever after?" "No." Sabrina's eyes glittered. "We use it." "Use what?" "Damien's connections, his power, his money." She smiled, cold and calculated. "Elena's not smart enough to leverage what she has. But we are." Trent frowned. "How?" Sabrina pulled out her phone, scrolling through her contacts. "I have a friend, someone who's very interested in Damien Vale. Someone who would pay a lot for information about him, his business, his associates, his weaknesses." Trent's eyes widened. "You're talking about selling him out. I'm talking about getting paid." Sabrina leaned back. "And getting rid of Elena in the process." Trent stared at her. "You're insane." "No, I'm practical." She finished her drink. "You want revenge on Elena for, Whatever it is you think she did to you. I want the life she's living. The money, the power, the husband who looks at her like she's the only person in the world. Her voice turned bitter. We both want something, and the only way to get it is to take it. Trent was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. What do you need me to do? Sabrina smiled. Just stay close, and when I call, be ready to move. She stood, dropping a few bills on the table. This is just the beginning, Trent. Elena's about to lose everything, and this time she won't have anyone to pick her up. She walked out, leaving Trent alone in the booth, his mind spinning with possibilities. The next morning, Elena woke to the sound of raised voices downstairs. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding, and grabbed her robe. She hurried down the stairs. Damien was in the foyer, his phone pressed to his ear, his face darker than she'd ever seen it. I don't care what it takes, he was saying, his voice cold and clipped. Find out who's feeding them information. I want names, I want locations, and I want it done quietly. He hung up, running a hand through his hair. What's wrong? Elena asked. Damien turned to her, his jaw tight. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Someone's been talking about me, about my business, to people I don't do business with. Elena's stomach dropped. Who? I don't know yet, but whoever it is, they're close enough to know things they shouldn't. Elena felt cold. Do you think it's Monica or Sabrina? Damien's eyes met hers. I think it's possible. Elena sank onto the bottom step, her mind racing. What do we do? We find out for sure, and then we deal with it. He moved to sit beside her, his hand covering hers. Elena, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay. Is there anything at all that your family might know about you, about us? Anything they could use? Elena thought hard. I don't think so. I barely talked to them before yesterday, and I've never told them anything about you. What about Trent? Elena's blood ran cold. What about him? Did you ever tell him anything about your family, about Sabrina? No, I complained about them sometimes, when we were married, but nothing specific. Nothing that would... She stopped, her eyes widening. Oh my God. What? Sabrina and Trent. They knew each other. Before I married him. Damien went very still. How do you know? I saw them once. At a party. They were talking in a corner, and when I walked up, they stopped. Like they didn't want me to hear. Elena's voice shook. I asked Trent about it later, and he said they'd just met. That it was nothing. Damien's face was stone. When was this? A few months before he proposed. Damien stood abruptly. I need to make some calls. Damien, what does this mean? He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. It means your marriage to Trent might not have been an accident. Elena felt the floor drop out from under her. What? But Damien was already walking away, his phone back at his ear, his voice low and urgent. Elena sat there on the steps, her mind spinning, her chest tight. Everything she thought she knew, every piece of her past, suddenly felt like a lie. By evening, Damien had answers. He found Elena in the library, curled up in a chair with a book she wasn't reading. He sat down across from her, his face grim. Tell me, Elena said quietly. Sabrina introduced you to Trent, Damien said. She set the whole thing up. She met him at a business event 2 years before you did. They stayed in touch. And when the time was right, she made sure you two crossed paths. Elena's hands clenched around the book. Why? Your father's will. When he died, he left everything to you, the house, the investments, the savings. Monica got nothing. Sabrina got nothing. They were furious. But I never saw any of that money, Elena whispered. Trent controlled it. Once you were married, he had access to your accounts, and he drained them, every penny. Damien's voice was hard. And then he left you with nothing, just like they planned. Elena felt like she couldn't breathe. They destroyed my life on purpose. Yes. And Sabrina, she's been behind it this whole time. It looks that way. Elena stood, pacing, her hands shaking. Why are you telling me this now? Because it's not over, Damien said. Sabrina's still moving. She's making calls, setting up meetings. She's planning something, Elena, something big. With who? Damien hesitated. With people I've spent my entire life trying to avoid. Elena stopped, turning to face him. Who? Damien. His jaw tightened. My enemies. The word hung in the air between them, heavy and ominous. Elena sank back into the chair, her mind reeling. She's going to use me to get to you. That's what I think. Then we stop her. We confront her. No. Damien's voice was firm. We let her think she's winning. We let her make her move, and then we take her down. Elena stared at him. You want to use me as bait. I want to protect you. But the only way to do that is to let this play out, to see exactly what she's planning. And if it goes wrong? Damien leaned forward, his eyes burning into hers. It won't. I won't let it. Elena wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that he could keep her safe, that this nightmare would end. But deep down, she knew the worst was still coming. Elena couldn't sleep that night either. She lay in bed staring at the shadows on the ceiling, her mind replaying everything Damien had told her. Sabrina had orchestrated her marriage. Trent had been a weapon aimed directly at her life. They had stolen everything and watched her fall apart, and now they were coming back for more. She got up around 3 a.m. and went to the window. The grounds were dark except for the faint glow of security lights along the perimeter. Somewhere out there beyond the gates and the hedges, Sabrina was plotting, planning, moving pieces on a board Elena hadn't even known she was playing on. She heard footsteps in the hall, a soft knock. Elena? She opened the door. Damien stood there in sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking as exhausted as she felt. Couldn't sleep either? She asked. Not really. He leaned against the door frame. You okay? I don't know what okay looks like anymore. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. They stood there in silence for a moment. Then Elena stepped back. Come in. I don't want to be alone right now. Damien followed her inside. They sat on the edge of her bed, shoulders almost touching, both staring at nothing. Tell me the truth, Elena said quietly. How dangerous is this? Really? Damien was quiet for a long time. Dangerous enough that if I thought I could send you somewhere safe, I would. But there's nowhere safe if they've already targeted you. The only way out is through. Through what? Through whatever Sabrina's planning, through the people she's working with. He turned to look at her. Elena, the men she's been in contact with, they're not business rivals. They're not corporate competitors. They're criminals, the kind who don't negotiate. Elena's throat tightened. And you know them. I know of them. The Kozlov family, Russian syndicate with operations all over the East Coast. They've been trying to muscle into my territory for years. I've kept them at bay, but they've been looking for a way in. His jaw clenched. Looks like they found one. Me. You. Your connection to me. Information about my operations, my security, my people. Damien's voice was hard. Sabrina's offering them everything they need to take me down. And she's using you to do it. Elena felt sick. Then we go to the police. The police can't touch the Kozlovs. Half of them are on their payroll anyway. Damien stood, pacing. No, we handle this ourselves. We let Sabrina think she's winning. We find out exactly what she's promised them. And then we cut her off at the knees. And what about Monica? Monica's just greedy. She'll follow wherever Sabrina leads. He stopped pacing, turning to face her. But Sabrina's the real threat. She's smart, she's ruthless, and she's desperate. That makes her unpredictable. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. She's my sister. Half-sister, and she's never treated you like family. I know, but still. Elena looked up at him. How did my life turn into this? Damien sat back down beside her, closer this time. Bad luck. Bad people. Bad timing. He paused. But you're still here. That counts for something. Does it? Yeah, it does. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder, too tired to hold herself upright anymore. Damien didn't move. He just sat there, solid and steady, while the night pressed in around them. I'm scared, Elena whispered. I know. But I'm also angry. Good. Angry's better than scared. She closed her eyes. What happens next? We wait, we watch, and when they make their move, we're ready. 2 days later, Elena was in the kitchen making coffee when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Elena? Sabrina's voice was smooth, friendly. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. Elena's hand tightened around the phone. What do you want, Sabrina? I wanted to apologize for the other day. I know we came on strong, and I know you have every right to be upset with us. But I meant what I said. We want to be part of your life again. I'm not interested. Please, just hear me out. Sabrina's voice took on a pleading tone. Can we meet? Just you and me. Somewhere neutral. I promise. No tricks. I just want to talk. Elena's mind raced. This was it. This was Sabrina making her move. She glanced toward Damien's office, where he was on a call. When? Elena asked. Today. This afternoon. There's a cafe on Rosewood Avenue, the one with the blue awning. Do you know it? I can find it. 2:00? Fine. Thank you, Elena, really. I know this is hard, but I think it'll be worth it. Sabrina hung up before Elena could respond. Elena stood there for a moment, her heart pounding, then walked to Damien's office. He was just finishing his call. That was Sabrina, Elena said. Damien's eyes sharpened. What did she want? To meet. Just the two of us, this afternoon. Absolutely not. Damien, no, it's too risky. We don't know what she's planning. That's exactly why I need to go. Elena stepped closer. You said we need to let her think she's winning. This is how we do that. Damien stood, his face dark. And if it's a trap? Then you'll be watching. You said you'd keep me safe, so keep me safe. She held his gaze. I need to do this. I need to look her in the eye and hear whatever lies she's about to tell me. Damien stared at her for a long moment, then cursed under his breath. Fine, but I'm sending 2 of my men. They'll be nearby the entire time, and you wear this. He pulled open a drawer and handed her a small device, no bigger than a button. Audio transmitter. I'll hear everything. Elena took it, turning it over in her hand. You really think she'd hurt me? I think she'd do whatever serves her best. And right now, I don't know what that is. The cafe was busy when Elena arrived, filled with the afternoon crowd of students and remote workers hunched over laptops. She spotted Sabrina at a corner table, 2 cups of coffee already waiting. Elena sat down, her stomach in knots. You came, Sabrina said, smiling. I wasn't sure you would. You asked. I'm here. What do you want? Sabrina's smile faltered slightly. Right to the point. I always forget how direct you can be. She pushed one of the coffees toward Elena. Vanilla latte. Your favorite. Elena didn't touch it. Talk. Sabrina sighed, folding her hands on the table. Elena, I know you hate me. I know you have every reason to. But I need you to understand something. Everything that happened with Trent, with Mom, with the money. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Elena stared at her. You set me up. You introduced me to Trent knowing exactly what he was going to do. Sabrina's face flickered with something that might have been guilt, or might have been annoyance. I introduced you to someone I thought you'd like. Yes, I knew Trent. Yes, I knew he was ambitious, but I didn't know he'd drain your accounts and leave you homeless. That was all him. Liar. I'm not lying. Sabrina leaned forward, her voice urgent. Elena, I was angry. I was hurt. Dad left everything to you and we got nothing. Do you have any idea how that felt? To watch him give you everything while we scrape by? You and Monica weren't scraping by. You were living in a house he paid for, driving cars he bought, wearing clothes he... That wasn't ours. Don't you get it? None of it was ours. It was all on loan, all conditional, all dependent on his mood and his whims. Sabrina's voice cracked. You were the golden child, the real daughter. We were just there. Elena wanted to feel sympathy. She wanted to believe that somewhere under all the lies and manipulation, there was a hurt person who'd made bad choices. But she couldn't. If you were so hurt, why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me instead of destroying my life? Because I was stupid and angry and 23 years old. Sabrina looked away. I made a mistake, a huge one. and I've regretted it every day since. Not enough to warn me. Not enough to stop Trent. Not enough to help me when he left me with nothing." Sabrina was quiet. Then she looked back at Elena, and her eyes were wet. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Elena felt something twist in her chest. She wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe that Sabrina was capable of genuine remorse. But then she remembered what Damien had said. Sabrina was working with the Kozlovs. Sabrina was planning something. This was all part of it. "Why now?" Elena asked. "Why apologize now after all this time?" Sabrina wiped her eyes. "Because I'm in trouble. Real trouble. And I need your help." There it was. The truth, finally. "What kind of trouble?" Sabrina glanced around, then leaned in closer, her voice dropping. "I owe people money. A lot of money. The kind of people you don't say no to." "What people?" "I can't say. But they're dangerous, Elena, and they're not patient." Sabrina's hand shot across the table, grabbing Elena's wrist. "I need money, just enough to get them off my back. And I know you have access to Damien's accounts. I know you could—" Elena yanked her hand back. "You want me to steal from Damien?" "Not steal. Borrow. He'd never even notice. He has millions, Elena, tens of millions. What's 100,000 to him?" Elena stood up, her chair scraping loudly. Several people turned to look. "You haven't changed at all," Elena said quietly. "This whole apology, this whole act, it was just to get money." "Elena, please. No, I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm done with Monica. I'm done with all of it." Elena grabbed her purse. "Don't call me again. Don't come to my house. Don't contact me. Ever." She turned to leave, but Sabrina's voice stopped her. "You're making a mistake." Elena looked back. Sabrina's face had changed. The tears were gone. The desperation was gone. What was left was cold and hard. "You think Damien's going to protect you forever?" Sabrina said. "You think he actually cares about you? He's using you, Elena. Just like Trent did. Just like everyone does. You don't know anything about him." "I know more than you think." Sabrina stood, her voice low and vicious. "I know about his business. I know about the people he works with. I know about the bodies buried in his past. And when it all comes crashing down, you're going to be buried right along with him." Elena felt cold. "Are you threatening me?" Sabrina smiled, and it was the ugliest thing Elena had ever seen. "I'm warning you. Walk away now while you still can. Because what's coming, you won't survive it." Elena didn't respond. She just turned and walked out, her heart pounding, her hands shaking. Outside, one of Damien's men was already at her side, escorting her to the car. She got in, and the door closed behind her, shutting out the noise of the street. Her phone buzzed. A text from Damien. "I heard everything. Come home." By the time Elena got back to the house, Damien had already mobilized. The living room was full of men in dark suits, all talking in low, urgent voices. Maps and documents covered the coffee table. Phones rang constantly. Damien was at the center of it all, his face grim, his voice sharp as he issued orders. He looked up when Elena walked in. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "Good, we need to talk, privately." He gestured toward his office. Elena followed him, her stomach churning. The door closed behind them, and suddenly it was just the two of them. "She threatened you," Damien said without preamble. "She warned me. There's a difference." "Not in my book." Damien's jaw was tight. "She's accelerating. Whatever she's planning, it's happening soon." "What do you mean?" "I mean my contacts just informed me that the Kozlovs are moving people into the area, bringing in muscle. That doesn't happen unless they're planning something big." He turned to face her fully. "Elena, they're coming for me, and they're using Sabrina to do it." Elena sank into a chair. "How soon?" "Days. Maybe hours. I don't know yet." "Then we leave. We go somewhere safe. There is nowhere safe." Damien crouched in front of her, his hands on her knees. "If we run, they'll hunt us. If we hide, they'll find us. The only option is to stand and fight." "I can't fight them, Damien. I don't know how." "I know. That's why you're going to let me handle it." His eyes were intense, burning. "But I need you to trust me. Completely. Can you do that? Elena looked at him, at the man who'd walked into that mall and changed everything, who'd stood between her and her past, who'd made her feel like maybe she was worth protecting. Yes, she whispered. I trust you. Damien nodded. Good, because this is going to get bad before it gets better. That night, Elena lay in bed listening to the sounds of the house, voices murmuring downstairs, footsteps in the hall, the occasional crackle of a radio. Damien had stationed guards at every entrance, cameras watching every angle. The house felt less like a home and more like a fortress. She got up and walked to the window. The grounds were lit up now, bright as day. She could see men patrolling the perimeter, shadows moving with purpose. Behind her, the door opened. Damien stepped in, looking exhausted. You should be sleeping, he said. So should you. He smiled faintly. Fair point. He came to stand beside her at the window. They watched the guards in silence for a moment. Do you ever regret it? Elena asked quietly. Getting involved with me? Damien looked at her, surprised. No, never. Even with all this? Especially with all this. He turned to face her. Elena, you didn't bring this into my life. This has always been my life. You're just the first person worth protecting in a long time. Elena felt her throat tighten. I don't know if I'm worth all this trouble. I do. They stood there close enough to touch, the weight of everything pressing down around them. Then from downstairs, someone shouted. Damien's entire body went rigid. Stay here. What's happening? Just stay here. He was already moving toward the door, pulling a gun from somewhere Elena hadn't even seen. Lock the door behind me. Don't open it for anyone but me. He was gone before she could respond. Elena stood frozen for a moment, then moved to the door and locked it, her hands shaking. She pressed her ear against the wood, trying to hear what was happening. Voices, footsteps, the sound of something heavy being moved, then silence. Elena's heart pounded. She wanted to open the door, to see what was happening, but Damien's voice echoed in her head. Stay here. Minutes passed. 5, 10, each one longer than the last. Then footsteps in the hall, rapid and purposeful. A knock. Elena, it's me. She unlocked the door. Damien stood there, his face dark. They're here, he said. Not in the house yet, but close. We've got activity on the north perimeter. At least 6 men, maybe more. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. What do we do? We lock down. No one gets in or out until we know what we're dealing with. He took her hand. Come on. There's a safe room downstairs. You'll be protected there. What about you? I'll be handling this. Damien, Elena. He stopped, turning to face her. I need you safe. I need to know you're somewhere they can't reach you. Please. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him she wasn't leaving his side. But the look in his eyes stopped her. Okay, she whispered. They moved quickly through the house. The living room was empty now, the men gone to their positions. Damien led her to a door she'd never noticed before, hidden behind a bookshelf. He pressed his palm to a scanner, and the door clicked open. Inside was a small room, reinforced steel walls, a single cot, a table with water and food. A panic room. Stay here, Damien said. The door locks from the inside. Don't open it unless you hear my voice. If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. If something goes wrong, he continued firmly, there's a phone in the drawer. Call the number programmed in. They'll come for you. Elena grabbed his shirt, pulling him close. Don't die. He kissed her forehead, gentle and quick. I don't plan to. Then he was gone, and the door closed behind him with a heavy thunk. Elena stood alone in the small room, her chest heaving, her mind racing. Outside, she heard the first gunshot, then another. Then the night exploded into chaos. Elena pressed herself against the wall, her whole body shaking. The sounds from outside were muffled but unmistakable. Gunfire. Shouting. Glass breaking. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, but there was no signal. The room was designed to block everything. She was alone. Completely and utterly alone. Time lost meaning. Minutes or hours, she couldn't tell. The sounds continued, rising and falling, sometimes close, sometimes distant. Then silence. Complete, suffocating silence. Elena's breath came in short gasps. She stared at the door, waiting, praying for Damien's voice. Nothing. She waited longer, still nothing. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate. A knock. Elena? Her heart leaped. Damien? Open the door. Something was wrong. The voice was right, but the tone was off. Too flat, too controlled. Damien, what's the code? Silence. Then the voice came again, colder now. Elena, open the door. That wasn't Damien. Elena backed away, her hand covering her mouth to keep from making a sound. The knocking came again, harder. We know you're in there. Make this easy on yourself. She looked around frantically. No windows, no other exits. She was trapped. The pounding on the door got louder. They were trying to break through. Elena grabbed the phone from the drawer, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold it. She pressed the program number. It rang once, twice. Then a man's voice. Who is this? Elena. Elena Vale. I'm in the safe room. They're trying to get in. Damien told me to call this number if... Hold on. We're coming. Don't open the door. Do you understand? Don't open the door no matter what you hear. The line went dead. Elena dropped the phone, pressing her back against the far wall, as far from the door as she could get. The pounding continued, then stopped. Voices outside muffled, arguing, then footsteps fading away. Elena waited, barely breathing. Minutes passed, then new footsteps. Running. Elena! This time she knew it was him. Damien? Open the door, now! She rushed forward, fumbling with the lock. The door swung open, and Damien was there, blood on his shirt, a cut above his eye, but alive. Elena threw herself at him, and he caught her, holding her tight. It's over, he said into her hair. It's over. They're gone. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Are you? She nodded against his chest, unable to speak. Behind them, more footsteps. Elena tensed, but Damien didn't let go. All clear, boss, one of his men said. We got 3 of them. The rest ran when reinforcements showed up. Bodies? Being handled. Damien nodded. Good. Sweep the grounds again. I want to make sure they're really gone. The man left. Damien pulled back just enough to look at Elena's face. You're okay, he said, as if trying to convince himself. You're okay. What happened? They came for me. For us. But we were ready. His jaw tightened. Sabrina gave them everything. Entry points, security codes, patrol schedules. She sold us out completely. Elena felt numb. Is she... No, she wasn't with them. She's too smart for that. She let them do the dirty work. Damien's eyes were hard. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. Elena looked up at him, at the blood and the exhaustion and the cold fury in his eyes. What do we do now? Now? Damien's voice was quiet, deadly. Now we make sure they never try this again. The next morning came too fast and too slow at the same time. Elena had barely slept, her mind replaying the sounds of gunfire, the pounding on the door, the terror of not knowing if Damien was alive or dead. She stood in the bathroom staring at her reflection, barely recognizing the hollow-eyed woman looking back at her. Downstairs, the house was full of activity. Men cleaning up, replacing broken windows, patching bullet holes in the walls. It looked like a war zone, which Elena supposed it had been. She found Damien in his office, surrounded by papers and laptops and 2 men she didn't recognize. He looked up when she entered, and for just a moment his face softened. Give us a minute, he said to the men. They left without a word, closing the door behind them. Elena crossed the room slowly. Did you sleep at all? Couple hours. Damien rubbed his eyes. Had to make some calls. Make sure the Kozlovs understood what happens when they come onto my property. What did you tell them? That the next time they try something like this, there won't be anyone left to run away. His voice was flat, matter of fact. They got the message. Elena sat down in the chair across from him. So it's over? With them? Yeah, for now. Damien leaned back, his face grim. But Sabrina's still out there, and she knows too much. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning. Find her, bring her here, make her answer for what she's done. Elena's chest tightened. And then what? Damien's eyes met hers, and she saw something dark there, something she'd been trying not to see. Then I make sure she never threatens you again. Damien, she tried to have you killed, Elena. She sold you out to criminals who would have put a bullet in your head without thinking twice. You get that, right? I know. Elena stopped, searching for words. I just don't want you to become something you're not because of me. I already am what I am. You didn't make me this. He stood, moving around the desk to crouch in front of her. But I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Whatever it takes. Elena looked at him, at the man who'd saved her life, who'd given her a home, who'd stood between her and everything that wanted to destroy her. She should have been scared of him. Maybe part of her was. But mostly, she was just grateful. Find her, Elena said quietly. But let me talk to her first, before you do whatever you're planning to do. Damien frowned. Why? Because I need to hear it from her. I need to look her in the eye and hear her admit what she did. I need to know for sure that everything I thought about my family was right. Damien studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. All right, you get 5 minutes with her, but I'm in the room the entire time. Deal? Deal. It took Damien's people less than 6 hours to find Sabrina. She'd been hiding in a motel on the edge of the city, cheap and anonymous, the kind of place where nobody asked questions. They brought her to the house around noon, her hands zip-tied behind her back, her face pale and defiant. Elena watched from the window as they pulled her out of the car. Sabrina looked smaller somehow, less polished, her hair messy and her makeup smudged, but her eyes were still sharp, still calculating, even now. They brought her inside and sat her in a chair in the living room. Damien's men flanked her on either side, silent and watchful. Damien stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, his face unreadable. Elena came down the stairs slowly. Sabrina looked up, and for a second something flickered in her expression. Fear, maybe? Or recognition that this was the end. Hello, Sabrina, Elena said. Sabrina's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. Elena, surprised you're still alive. Disappointed? A little. Elena pulled up a chair and sat down across from her. Up close, Sabrina looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, her hands trembling slightly. She'd lost, and she knew it. Tell me why, Elena said quietly. Why what? Why you did all of it. Why you introduced me to Trent. Why you helped him destroy me. Why you tried to kill me. Sabrina laughed, sharp and bitter. You really want to know? Or are you just looking for some sob story that'll make you feel better about what he's going to do to me? I want the truth. The truth. Sabrina leaned back, her eyes hard. The truth is that I hated you. From the day Dad married your mom, from the day you moved into our house with your big sad eyes and your quiet little voice. Everyone loved you. Everyone wanted to protect you. And meanwhile, I was right there, doing everything right, being everything they wanted, and no one even noticed. That's not true. It is true. You were the victim, the poor little girl who lost her mom, and I was just the bratty stepdaughter who didn't matter. Sabrina's voice rose. And then Dad died and left everything to you. Everything. Like I was nothing. Like all those years I spent trying to make him proud meant nothing. Elena felt a pang of something, but she pushed it down. So you decided to take it from me. I decided to take back what should have been mine in the first place. Sabrina leaned forward, her eyes blazing. And it worked. Trent drained your accounts, left you with nothing, and for a little while I got to watch you suffer the way I'd been suffering my whole life. And that made you feel better? For about 5 minutes. Then Mom started spending everything, and the debt piled up, and suddenly we were drowning just like you had been. Sabrina laughed again, hollow. Turns out revenge doesn't pay the bills. So you moved on to Damien. I moved on to survival. I needed money. The Kozlovs offered money. It was simple math. They would have killed me, Sabrina. They would have killed both of us. Maybe, but at least I would have been paid first. Sabrina's face twisted. You don't get it, Elena. You've always had someone to save you. First Dad, then Damien. Meanwhile, I've been on my own since I was 16. Nobody ever saved me. Elena stared at her, and for a moment she almost felt sorry for her. Almost. You could have asked me for help, Elena said quietly. After Dad died. After everything. You could have just asked, and you would have said no. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because people like you always say no to people like me. You get to be the victim, and we get to be the villains, and nothing we do will ever change that. Elena stood up, her chest tight. You're right. You are the villain, but not because of anything I did. You made yourself into this. Every choice, every lie, every betrayal, that was all you. Sabrina's face went cold. You think you're so much better than me? You think marrying a criminal makes you some kind of saint? I think I'm done listening to you. Elena turned to Damien. I'm finished. Damien nodded. He looked at his men. Take her downstairs, I'll deal with her later. They hauled Sabrina to her feet. She struggled, her face flushing red. You can't just lock me up. I have rights. You gave up your rights when you tried to kill my wife, Damien said, his voice ice. Sabrina's eyes widened. Wife? Elena froze. Damien had said it so casually, like it was a fact, not a lie. But they weren't married. They'd never even talked about marriage. Sabrina saw her face and laughed, wild and bitter. Oh, this is perfect. He doesn't even tell you the truth. You're so desperate for someone to care about you that you'll believe anything, won't you? Get her out of here, Damien said sharply. They dragged Sabrina toward the door. She twisted back, her voice rising. He's using you, Elena. He's using you just like Trent did. You're just a pawn in whatever game he's playing. Then she was gone, her voice echoing down the hallway until a door slammed and cut it off. Elena stood there, her hands shaking, her mind spinning. Damien moved closer. Elena, did you mean that? She asked. What you said about me being your wife. He hesitated, and that hesitation told her everything. It was easier than explaining the real situation, he said carefully. So it was a lie. It was a simplification. Elena laughed, and it came out broken. Right, a simplification. Elena, don't. She held up a hand. Just don't. I need a minute. She walked out before he could say anything else, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. Elena ended up in the library, curled up in the same chair she'd sat in the night Damien told her about Sabrina's plan. It felt like years ago now, not days. She heard footsteps behind her but didn't turn around. Can I sit? Damien's voice was quiet. It's your house. He sat down across from her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that in front of her. I wasn't thinking. No, you were thinking. You were thinking it would hurt her to hear it. And it did. Elena finally looked at him. But it hurt me too. I know. Do you? Her voice cracked. Do you have any idea what it's like to have every relationship in your life built on lies? To never know if someone actually cares about you or if they're just using you? Elena, Trent lied to me from the beginning. My family lied to me. Everyone I've ever trusted has lied to me. And I thought maybe you were different. I thought maybe you actually... She stopped, shaking her head. Never mind. Say it. No. Elena, say it. She looked at him, her eyes burning. I thought maybe you actually cared about me. Not because I was useful. Not because I was connected to something you wanted. But just because I was me. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and crossed the space between them, kneeling in front of her chair. I do care about you, he said, his voice rough. I care about you more than I've cared about anyone in a long time. And that scares the hell out of me. Elena stared at him. Then why lie? Because telling the truth is harder. Because saying that you matter to me means admitting that I have something to lose. And in my world, having something to lose gets you killed. Your world is my world now, Elena said quietly. Whether I like it or not. I know, and that's on me. Damien took her hand. Elena, I'm not good at this. I don't do relationships. I don't do feelings. I do business and strategy and keeping people at arm's length because it's safer that way. But with you, he stopped, searching for words. With you, I can't seem to keep my distance, and I don't know what to do with that. Elena felt something crack open in her chest. You could start by being honest with me about everything. Even if it's ugly, especially if it's ugly. Damien nodded slowly. All right, you want honesty? Here it is. I've done things that would make you hate me. I've hurt people. I've crossed lines that can't be uncrossed. I'm not a good man, Elena. I'm just a man who's trying to protect the one good thing that's walked into his life in years. I'm not good either, Elena said. I'm angry and broken, and I don't trust anyone anymore. I'm a mess, Damien. I know. That's why we fit. Elena almost smiled. Almost. What are we doing here? Really? Surviving. Together. Damien squeezed her hand. And if that turns into something more, then we'll figure it out as we go. And Sabrina? Damien's face hardened. Sabrina made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences. What are you going to do with her? I'm going to make sure she can't hurt you anymore. How I do that is up to her. Elena wanted to ask more, but part of her didn't want to know. She'd asked for honesty, and she'd gotten it. Now she had to decide if she could live with it. I need air, she said, standing. I need to think. Damien stood with her. Take all the time you need, but Elena? Yeah? I meant what I said, about caring about you. Elena nodded, her throat too tight to speak, and walked out. She found herself in the garden, walking the stone paths between the hedges. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and orange. It should have been beautiful, but Elena barely saw it. Her phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Elena? Monica's voice was frantic, breathless. Elena, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Elena's stomach dropped. What do you want, Monica? It's Sabrina. Someone told me that Damien has her. Is that true? Yes. Monica made a choked sound. Elena, please, please, you have to help her. She's my daughter. She made mistakes. I know she did, but she doesn't deserve... She tried to have me killed. Silence. Then Monica's voice, smaller now. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know she was going to do that. But you knew about Trent. You knew about the plan to take my money. More silence. You didn't help me when I needed it, Elena said, her voice shaking. You slammed the door in my face and left me on the street. So don't call me now asking for help. You don't get to do that. Elena, please, where were you when I was homeless? Where were you when I was hungry and alone and had nowhere to go? I was scared. I didn't know what to do. Sabrina said. You always did whatever Sabrina wanted, didn't you? Even if it meant destroying me. Monica started crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was weak and stupid and I listened to the wrong person, but she's still my daughter, Elena. She's still my baby. She's not a baby. She's a grown woman who made her choices, and now she has to deal with them. He's going to kill her, isn't he? Elena closed her eyes. I don't know. Elena, please. I'm begging you. Whatever you can do, whatever influence you have, please. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I was terrible to you, but please don't let him hurt her. Elena wanted to hang up. She wanted to tell Monica to go to hell and never call again. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the desperation in Monica's voice. Maybe it was the part of Elena that still remembered what it was like to be helpless. I'll talk to him, Elena said finally. But I'm not making any promises. Thank you. Thank you so much. Elena hung up before Monica could finish. She stood there in this garden, the phone still in her hand, her chest tight with emotions she couldn't name. Behind her, footsteps on the path. Was that Monica? Damien asked. Elena turned. He stood a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, watching her. Yeah. She's terrified you're going to kill Sabrina. I should. I know. But, Elena took a breath, but I don't want you to have that on your conscience because of me. I don't want to be the reason you become someone you're not. I already told you. I know what you told me, but there's a difference between protecting yourself and executing someone in cold blood, and I think you know that. Damien was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do with her? I want you to make sure she can never hurt anyone again, but I don't want her dead. Elena moved closer. Can you do that? Damien stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. Yeah, I can do that. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might not like how I have to make it happen. I trust you. Something shifted in Damien's face. You shouldn't. Too late. He reached out, pulling her close. Elena let herself lean into him, her forehead resting against his chest. They stood like that for a long time, the sun sinking lower, the shadows growing longer around them. What happens now? Elena asked quietly. Now we finish this. Once and for all. The next morning, Damien called a meeting. Not just his men, but others. People Elena didn't recognize. Hard-faced men in expensive suits, women with sharp eyes and sharper smiles. They filled the living room, the dining room, spilling out into the hallway. Elena stayed upstairs watching from the landing. She could hear bits and pieces of the conversation, names she didn't know, places she'd never heard of, plans she didn't understand. When it was over, the house emptied quickly. Damien found her on the stairs. What was that about? Elena asked. Insurance. Making sure the Kozlovs and anyone else who gets ideas understands what happens if they come after us again. Did it work? We'll see. He took her hand, leading her back to his office. Inside, Sabrina sat in a chair, her hands still zip-tied, but her face less defiant now, more resigned. Trent stood against the wall, looking like he wanted to disappear. Elena stopped, staring. What is he doing here? Helping me clean up this mess, Damien said. Turns out Trent has a lot to say when his life is on the line. Trent's face flushed red. I told you everything. The bank accounts, the meetings, the plan. I gave you everything. And in exchange, you get to walk away with your life, Damien said. But if you ever come near Elena again, if you so much as think her name, that deal is off. Clear? Trent nodded frantically. Crystal, I swear, I'm done. I'm out. Good. So Damien looked at Sabrina. Your turn. Sabrina lifted her head, her eyes meeting Elena's. For once, there was no anger there, no bitterness, just exhaustion. What do you want from me? Sabrina asked. The truth, Damien said. All of it. Every meeting, every phone call, every person you talk to. You give me that, and you get to live. And if I don't? Then you don't. Sabrina looked at Elena. This is what you want? To watch me grovel? I want this to be over, Elena said quietly. I want to move on with my life and never think about you again. Something flickered in Sabrina's face. Pain, maybe. Or regret. I really did hate you, for a long time. I know. But I think maybe I hated myself more. Sabrina's voice cracked. And it was easier to blame you than to admit that. Elena didn't know what to say to that. Sabrina turned to Damien. I'll tell you everything, every name, every detail, but I want your word that you won't kill me. You have it. And I want out. Out of this city, out of this life. I want to disappear. Damien studied her. That can be arranged, but you come back, you make contact with Elena or anyone in her life, and the deal is off. Deal. Damien nodded to one of his men. Take her downstairs, get everything she knows. They led Sabrina out. She didn't look back. Trent stood there awkwardly, like he wasn't sure if he was supposed to leave or stay. Get out, Elena said. He didn't need to be told twice. When the door closed, Elena sank into a chair. Is it really over? With them? Yeah. Damien sat on the edge of his desk. But there'll always be something else, someone else. That's just how my world works. Our world, Elena corrected. Damien smiled faintly. Our world. Elena looked at him, at the man who'd saved her, who'd protected her, who'd given her a reason to keep fighting. She didn't know what the future looked like. She didn't know if they'd survive the next crisis or the one after that. But for the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't facing it alone. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not giving up on me. Even when you probably should have. Damien crossed the room and knelt in front of her, taking her hands. I told you before, you're worth protecting, you're worth fighting for, and I meant it. Elena felt tears prick her eyes, but this time she didn't try to hide them. I don't know how to do this, how to be with someone, how to trust. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out. Promise? Promise. Elena leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. What happens now? Now we rebuild. We move forward, and we make sure no one ever gets the chance to hurt you again. Together? Together? 3 days passed before Sabrina told them everything. Every meeting with the Kozlovs, every piece of information she'd sold, every lie she'd told. Damien's people verified it all, cross-referenced it, made sure she wasn't holding anything back. By the end, they had enough to dismantle the entire network she'd built, enough to make sure the people she'd worked with would never touch them again. Elena didn't attend the interrogations. She didn't want to hear Sabrina's voice anymore, didn't want to see her face. She spent those days in the garden, in the library, anywhere that felt far away from the chaos. Damien checked on her regularly, but he didn't push. He seemed to understand that she needed space to process everything that had happened. On the 4th day, he found her in the kitchen making coffee. It was early, barely past dawn, and the house was quiet. "It's done," Damien said. Elena turned. "Sabrina?" "Leaving tonight. One-way ticket to somewhere she can start over. New name, new identity, enough money to get established." He leaned against the counter. "She won't be coming back." "And Monica?" "Monica's problem is debt, not malice. I paid off her creditors. She's moving to her sister's place upstate. She won't bother you anymore." Elena set down her coffee cup. "You didn't have to do that." "I know, but you asked me not to kill Sabrina, and I didn't. This was the compromise. Thank you." Damien shrugged. "Don't thank me. I did it for you, not for them." Elena walked over to him, studying his face. He looked tired, older somehow, like the weight of the last week had carved itself into his features. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Damien," he sighed. "I'm tired. Tired of fighting, tired of looking over my shoulder, tired of waiting for the next crisis." He met her eyes. "But I'd do it all again if it meant keeping you safe." Elena felt something shift in her chest. "What if I don't want you to have to keep fighting for me? What if I want to fight for myself?" "Then I'll teach you how." Damien's mouth quirked into a small smile. "But I'm still going to be there, whether you like it or not." "I like it," Elena said softly. They stood there in the quiet kitchen, the early morning light filtering through the windows, and for the first time in days, Elena felt like she could breathe. "There's something else," Damien said. "Something I need to tell you." Elena's stomach tightened. "What?" "Monica asked to see you before she leaves. She's downstairs in one of the guest rooms." Elena stepped back. "No, I don't want to see her." "I know, but she's not leaving until she talks to you. She's been sitting down there for 2 hours." "Then let her sit." "Elena." "She doesn't get to do this," Elena said, her voice rising. "She doesn't get to ask for forgiveness just because it makes her feel better. She made her choices. She has to live with them." "I agree. But maybe you need to hear what she has to say. Not for her sake. For yours." Elena stared at him. "You think I need closure. I think you need to decide what you need, and you can't do that if you're running away from her." Elena wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she didn't owe Monica anything, that the door between them had closed permanently. But deep down, she knew he had a point. She'd spent her whole life avoiding confrontation, letting people hurt her, and then disappearing rather than standing her ground. Maybe it was time to stop running. "Fine," Elena said, "but you're coming with me." "Wouldn't have it any other way." Malsoul. Monica looked smaller than Elena remembered. She sat on the edge of the guest bed, her hands folded in her lap, her face pale and drawn. When Elena and Damien walked in, she stood quickly, her eyes red from crying. "Elena," Monica breathed, "thank you for seeing me. I know you didn't have to." "I didn't want to," Elena said bluntly, "but apparently we both need this conversation." Monica flinched. "I deserve that." "You deserve worse." Monica nodded, tears spilling over. I know I do." "Elena, I'm so sorry. For everything. For not helping you when you needed it. For listening to Sabrina. For being weak and selfish and—" "Stop." Elena held up a hand. "I don't want your apologies. I want answers. Why did you do it? Why did you turn me away?" Monica sank back onto the bed, her face crumpling. "Because Sabrina convinced me you were the reason we had nothing. She said your father had always loved you more, that he'd always put you first, and that if we helped you, we'd end up with even less." She wiped her eyes. "And I believed her. because it was easier to blame you than to admit that I'd married a man who didn't really love me. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. What? Your father married me because he was lonely, because he needed someone to take care of you after your mother died. But he never loved me the way he loved her. I always knew that, and I resented you for it. Monica's voice broke. I resented a child for being loved more than I was. How pathetic is that? Elena didn't know what to say. She'd spent so long thinking of Monica as purely villainous, purely cruel, that the idea of her being broken and desperate felt almost alien. That doesn't excuse what you did, Elena said finally. I know. Nothing excuses it. But I need you to understand that I wasn't trying to hurt you out of malice. I was just trying to survive in a world where I'd never felt like I belonged. Monica looked up at her, her eyes pleading. I was wrong about everything, and I'm sorry. Elena crossed her arms. Do you know what it was like? Being on the street with nowhere to go, no money, no food, no one who cared if I lived or died? I can't imagine. Come? No, you can't, because you had a house and a bed and food in the fridge. You had options. I had nothing. Elena's voice shook. I knocked on your door and begged you to help me, and you looked me in the eye and slammed the door in my face. Do you remember that? Monica nodded, sobbing now. I remember. I remember every second of it. I've thought about it every day since. Good. I hope you never forget it. I hope it haunts you for the rest of your life. It will. I promise you, it will. Elena stared at her for a long moment, then turned to leave. At the door, she stopped. I don't forgive you, Elena said quietly. I don't know if I ever will. But I'm letting you go. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to move on with my life without carrying you around in my head anymore. Monica covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Elena walked out without looking back. Damien followed, closing the door behind them. In the hallway, Elena leaned against the wall, her chest heaving. You okay? Damien asked. I don't know. I think so. Elena looked up at him. Did I do the right thing? There's no right thing. There's just what you can live with. Elena nodded. Can we leave? I don't want to be here anymore. Where do you want to go? Anywhere? Just away from here. Damien took her hand. Let's go. They drove for hours, no destination in mind, just moving. The city fell away behind them, replaced by open highway and stretches of forest. Elena watched the scenery blur past, her mind slowly unwinding, the tension in her shoulders finally starting to ease. They stopped at a diner somewhere off the interstate, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting on the burner for 6 hours. They slid into a booth in the back, and Elena ordered pancakes she didn't really want, while Damien got black coffee and pie. You think Monica meant it? Elena asked. The apology? Probably, but it doesn't matter. She said it for herself, not for you. That's what I thought. Elena picked at her pancakes. Is it wrong that I feel sorry for her, even after everything? No, it just means you're not like them. I don't want to be like them. I don't want to carry all that hate and bitterness around for the rest of my life. Then don't. Elena looked up at him. Is it really that simple? It's not simple, but it's a choice. Every day, you choose what you carry and what you let go. Damien took a sip of his coffee. Took me a long time to figure that out. What do you carry? He smiled faintly. Too much, but I'm working on it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the diner humming with quiet conversation around them. Elena felt something settle inside her, something that felt almost like peace. What happens when we go back, she asked. Life, work, whatever comes next. Damien leaned back. But we'll handle it together. You keep saying that. Because I mean it. Elena smiled. Good. Because I'm not letting you get rid of me now. Wasn't planning on it. They got back to the house late that night. Monica was gone. Her room empty. No trace that she'd ever been there. Sabrina was gone too, already on a plane to somewhere far away. The house felt different without their presence, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. Elena went upstairs to shower and change. When she came back down, she found Damien in the living room, a drink in his hand, staring out the window at the dark grounds. What are you thinking about? Elena asked. how close we came to losing everything. Elena sat down beside him. But we didn't. No, we didn't. He turned to look at her. Elena, there's something I need to ask you. Okay? He set his drink down, turning to face her fully. What do you want? From this? From us? From your life? Elena blinked, surprised by the question. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. Think about it now. Elena considered. What did she want? For so long, she'd just been surviving, just trying to make it through one day to the next. She'd never had the luxury of thinking about what she actually wanted from her life. I want to stop being afraid, she said finally. I want to stop looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next disaster. I want to wake up in the morning and not dread the day ahead. What else? I want to matter. Not because of who I'm connected to or what I can do for someone else, but just because I'm me. Elena's voice grew stronger. I want to build something. I don't know what yet, but something that's mine, something nobody can take away. Damien nodded slowly. I can help with that. I don't want your help, not with this. Elena smiled softly. I need to do it myself, but I want you there, as my partner, not my protector. I can do that too. Can you really? Because I know who you are, Damien. I know what you do. And I know that letting go of control isn't exactly your strong suit. Damien laughed, short and surprised. You're not wrong. So can you do it? Can you step back and let me figure out my own life? He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Yeah, I can do it. Won't be easy, but I can do it. Good. Elena leaned against him. Because I think I'm going to need you to. They sat like that for a long time, the house quiet around them, the future stretching out uncertain, but no longer terrifying. The next morning, Elena woke up with a clarity she hadn't felt in years. She got dressed, went downstairs, and found Damien in his office. I want to start a foundation, she said without preamble. Damien looked up from his laptop. A foundation? For people like me, people who've been thrown out, abandoned, left with nothing. I want to help them get back on their feet. Housing, job training, counseling, whatever they need. Damien leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. That's a hell of an idea. I know it'll take money and time and probably more work than I can imagine, but I want to do it. I need to do it. Elena stepped closer. And I need to know if you're okay with that, because it's going to mean using your name, your connections, your resources. Use whatever you need. Just like that? Just like that. Damien stood, moving around the desk. Elena, if you want to build something that helps people, I'm not going to stand in your way. I'll help however I can. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Starting a foundation is brutal work. You're going to have long days and bad days and days where you want to quit. I know, but I'm ready for it. Damien pulled her close. Then let's get started. Over the next few weeks, Elena threw herself into the work. She met with lawyers, filed paperwork, set up bank accounts, drafted mission statements. Damien connected her with people who could help, opened doors she didn't even know existed. But he kept his word and stayed in the background, letting her make the decisions, letting her build something that was truly hers. She called it second chances. Simple, direct, honest. The kind of name that didn't make promises it couldn't keep. The first office was small, just 3 rooms in a building downtown. The furniture was second-hand, the computers donated. But it was hers, and that made it beautiful. On opening day, Elena stood in the middle of the empty office, looking around at the bare walls and scratched floors, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Damien appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee. How's it feel? Terrifying. Amazing. A little bit of both. That sounds about right. He handed her a coffee. You did this. All of it. You helped. I opened some doors, you walked through them. Elena smiled. Thank you for believing I could do this. I always believed you could. Even when I didn't believe in myself? Especially then. They stood there together, looking at the space that would soon be filled with people looking for help, looking for hope, looking for a second chance. Think it'll work? Elena asked. I think if anyone can make it work, it's you. 6 months later, the foundation was thriving. They'd helped 30 people find housing, 20 find jobs, a dozen get into counseling programs. The office had expanded to 5 rooms, then 7. Elena hired staff, trained volunteers, built partnerships with other organizations. She worked long hours and came home exhausted, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she was doing something that mattered. Damien scaled back his more dangerous operations, focusing on legitimate businesses, building something that wouldn't get them killed. He still had enemies, still had people who wanted to see him fall, but they were quieter now, more cautious. Word had spread about what happened to the Kozlovs, about what happened to anyone who came after Damien Vale's family. Because that's what they were now. Family. They made it official on a quiet Saturday morning at City Hall, just the 2 of them and a judge who asked no questions. Elena wore a simple white dress she'd bought the day before. Damien wore a dark suit that made him look like he was attending a business meeting, not a wedding. "You sure about this?" Damien asked as they stood in the hallway waiting their turn. "Are you?" "I asked first." Elena smiled. "Yeah, I'm sure. Are you?" "Yeah, I'm sure." The ceremony took 10 minutes. They signed papers, exchanged simple rings, and walked out married. No flowers, no music, no guests. Just 2 people choosing each other. Outside, they stood on the steps of City Hall, the morning sun warm on their faces. "So," Damien said. "Mrs. Vale." "So," Elena replied. "Mr. Vale." "What now?" "Now we go home. We have lunch. We keep building our lives." Elena took his hand. "The boring, normal stuff." "I can do boring and normal." "Liar," Damien laughed. "Okay, maybe not boring, but normal, I can try." They walked down the steps together, hand in hand, into a future that was uncertain and messy and probably filled with more problems than either of them wanted to think about. But they'd face it together. And that was enough. A year after the foundation opened, Elena stood on a small stage in a community center, facing a room full of reporters and cameras. It was the foundation's anniversary event, and someone had suggested that Elena give a speech about what they'd accomplished. She'd almost said no. Public speaking terrified her. But Damien had encouraged her, reminded her that her story could help other people, could give them hope. So she stood there, her notes trembling slightly in her hands, and looked out at the crowd. "A few years ago," Elena began, "I had nothing. No home, no money, no one who cared if I lived or died. I'd been destroyed by people I trusted, abandoned by people who were supposed to love me. I was broken in ways I didn't think I could ever come back from." She paused, steadying herself. "But I'm standing here today because I learned something important. Being broken doesn't mean being finished. It just means you have to rebuild. And rebuilding is hard and slow, and sometimes it feels impossible. But it's not." In the back of the room, she saw Damien watching, his face serious, his eyes on her. "This foundation exists because I know what it's like to need help and not have anywhere to turn. I know what it's like to feel like you're not worth saving, but you are. Everyone is." Elena's voice grew stronger. "Whatever you've been through, whatever's been done to you, you deserve a second chance. You deserve to rebuild your life. And we're here to help you do that." She looked down at her notes, then back up at the crowd. "I'm not going to stand here and pretend I have all the answers. I'm still figuring it out myself. But I've learned that you don't have to have it all figured out to start moving forward. You just have to take the first step. And then the next one. And then the one after that." Elena folded her notes. "That's all I have. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing in what we're doing. And thank you for giving me the chance to turn my pain into something that helps other people." The room erupted in applause. Elena stepped off the stage, her legs shaking, her heart pounding. Damien was there immediately, his arm around her waist. "You were incredible. I was terrified." "I know, but you did it anyway." He kissed her temple. "I'm proud of you." Elena leaned into him, letting herself feel the warmth of his pride, the solidity of his presence. "Thank you for everything, for saving me when I couldn't save myself." "You saved yourself," Damien said. "I just gave you the space to do it." Elena looked up at him, at the man who'd changed everything, who'd stood between her and the darkness, who'd believed in her even when she couldn't believe in herself. I love you, she said. The words felt strange on her tongue, new and unfamiliar, but true. Damien's face softened. I love you too. They stood there in the busy community center, people moving around them, cameras still flashing, the noise of celebration filling the air. But for that moment, it was just the two of them, two broken people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to build something new. That night, they drove back to the house in comfortable silence. Elena looked out the window at the city lights, thinking about everything that had brought her to this moment. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, but also the strength, the resilience, the stubborn refusal to give up. She'd lost so much, her family, her innocence, her trust in people. But she'd gained something too. She'd gained herself, the real version, not the scared girl who bent to everyone else's will, but the woman who stood up and fought back. What are you thinking about? Damien asked. Everything, nothing, Elena smiled. I'm thinking about how strange it is that the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best thing. Meeting me? Don't let it go to your head, Damien grinned. Too late, Elena laughed. It felt good, easy, like something she'd been missing for a long time without realizing it. When they got home, the house was quiet. No armed guards, no crisis meetings, no threats lurking in the shadows. Just a home. Their home. They went inside together, and Elena looked around at the space that had once felt foreign and now felt like it belonged to her. She'd made it hers, not by changing it, but by claiming it, by deciding that she deserved to be here, in this house, with this man, living this life. I'm going to make tea, Elena said. You want some? Sure. She went to the kitchen while Damien checked his messages. She filled the kettle, set it on the stove, and stood there waiting for it to boil, her mind quiet for the first time in months. She thought about Sabrina, wherever she was now, hopefully building a better life. She thought about Monica, living with her sister, hopefully finding some peace. She thought about Trent, who'd disappeared completely, which was exactly what Elena wanted. She didn't forgive them. She might never forgive them. But she'd let go of the anger, the bitterness, the need for revenge. Not because they deserved it, but because she did. Because holding on to that pain was like carrying a backpack full of rocks. It weighed you down, exhausted you, kept you from moving forward. And Elena was done being weighed down. The kettle whistled. Elena poured the water, made 2 cups of tea, and carried them back to the living room where Damien was sitting on the couch, his laptop open, reading something that made his brow furrow. Work? Elena asked, handing him a cup. Always. He closed the laptop. But it can wait. Elena curled up beside him, her head on his shoulder. Tell me something. Like what? Something true. Something you've never told anyone. Damien was quiet for a moment. I was scared. Of what? Of this. Of you. Of caring about someone enough that losing them would destroy me. He paused. I spent most of my life keeping people at a distance because it was safer. And then you showed up and ruined all of that. Elena smiled against his shoulder. Sorry. Don't be. It was worth it. They sat there together, drinking tea, watching the city lights through the window, existing in the quiet space they'd carved out for themselves in a world that had tried to tear them apart. Elena thought about the girl she'd been a few years ago, broken, scared, convinced she was worthless. And she thought about the woman she was now, still healing, still learning, but no longer afraid. She'd survived. She'd rebuilt. She'd reclaimed her life, and that was enough. The phone rang early the next morning. Elena groaned, reaching for it without opening her eyes. Hello? Elena Vale? An unfamiliar voice, professional, clipped. Elena sat up, suddenly awake. Yes? This is Detective Harris with the City Police Department. I'm calling to inform you that Trent Walker was found dead this morning. We're investigating it as a suspected suicide. Elena felt like the air had been punched out of her lungs. What? He left a note. It mentioned you by name. We'll need you to come down to the station to answer some questions. Okay. When? As soon as possible. I'll be there in an hour. Elena hung up, her hands shaking. Beside her, Damien was already sitting up, his face alert. What happened? Trent's dead. They think it was suicide. Damien's expression didn't change. You okay? I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. You don't have to feel anything. He made his choices. Elena looked at him. Did you? No. I promised you I wouldn't touch him, and I didn't. Whatever happened to him, that was on him. Elena believed him. She got dressed mechanically, her mind spinning. Trent was dead. The man who'd destroyed her life, who'd taken everything from her, was gone. She should have felt something. Relief, maybe, or vindication. But all she felt was empty. At the police station, Detective Harris was a tired-looking woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She led Elena into an interview room and asked her a series of questions about her relationship with Trent, when she'd last seen him, if she knew of any reason he might take his own life. Elena answered honestly. She hadn't seen him in months. She didn't know what was going on in his life. She wasn't surprised that he'd done this, given everything that had happened. His note mentioned that he'd destroyed you, the detective said, that he couldn't live with what he'd done. Does that sound accurate? He did destroy me. For a while. Elena met the detective's eyes. But I rebuilt, and I moved on. Whatever guilt he was carrying, that was his to deal with. The detective studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, that's all for now. We'll be in touch if we have any more questions. Elena walked out of the station into the bright morning sun. Damien was waiting by the car, his face unreadable. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I think so. Elena took a breath. He's really gone. He's gone. And I don't feel anything. Is that wrong? Damien shook his head. No, it's honest. Elena got in the car. As they drove away from the station, she looked out the window at the city passing by. Trent was dead. Sabrina was gone. Monica was gone. All the people who'd hurt her, who'd tried to destroy her, were out of her life permanently now. She was free. Completely, utterly free. And she had no idea what to do with that freedom. I want to do something, Elena said suddenly. Like what? I don't know. Something that proves I'm not defined by what they did to me. Something that's just for me. Damien glanced at her. What do you have in mind? Elena thought for a moment. I want to go back to school, finish my degree. Maybe get a master's in social work so I can do the foundation work better. That's a great idea. And I want to travel. See places I've never been. Do things I've always been too scared to do. We can do that. And I want... Elena stopped, then smiled. I want to be happy. Just simple, boring, everyday happy. Damien reached over and took her hand. That I can definitely help with. 2 years later, Elena stood in front of a mirror in a hotel room, adjusting the collar of her graduation gown. She'd done it. She'd gone back to school, taken classes while running the foundation, written papers and taken exams, and somehow survived. And today, she was graduating with a master's degree in social work. Behind her, Damien appeared in the doorway. You look good. I look ridiculous. You look like someone who just accomplished something incredible. Elena turned to face him. Thank you for supporting me through all of this. You did the work. I just cheered from the sidelines. Elena smiled. You did more than that. You believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Damien crossed the room and pulled her close. I'll always believe in you. They stood there for a moment, holding each other, and Elena felt a wave of gratitude so strong it almost knocked her over. This man had saved her in ways she couldn't even articulate. Not because he'd fought her battles or fixed her problems, but because he'd given her the space and support to save herself. I love you, she said. I love you too. Damien pulled back, smiling. Now come on, you're going to be late. They walked out together, hand in hand toward a future that was no longer terrifying but full of possibility. At the graduation ceremony, Elena sat among hundreds of other graduates, listening to speeches about potential and achievement and the bright futures ahead of them. And for once, she believed it. She believed that her future could be bright, that she could build something meaningful, that she could be more than just a survivor. When they called her name, she walked across the stage with her head held high. The applause was deafening. In the crowd, she saw Damien on his feet, clapping louder than anyone. She'd done it. She'd rebuilt her life from nothing. She'd turned pain into purpose, trauma into strength, survival into triumph. and she'd done it on her own terms. Mom. That night, they celebrated with a quiet dinner at home. No fancy restaurant, no big party, just the two of them, a home-cooked meal and a bottle of wine. "What's next?" Damien asked. Elena considered. "More of the same, I think. Keep growing the foundation. Keep helping people. Keep building this life we've created." "Sounds good to me." "What about you? What do you want?" Damien smiled. "This, right here. You, me, a quiet life. That's all I've ever wanted." Elena raised her glass. "To quiet lives." "To quiet lives," Damien echoed, clinking his glass against hers. They drank, and Elena felt a contentment settle over her that she'd never experienced before. It wasn't the euphoria of a perfect moment. It was something deeper, more sustainable. The satisfaction of knowing she'd fought for this life and won. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Elena thought about the journey that had brought her here. The pain, the fear, the countless times she'd wanted to give up, but she hadn't. She'd kept going, one foot in front of the other, until she'd found solid ground. "Damien?" she said into the darkness. "Yeah? Thank you. For everything." "You've already thanked me." "I know, but I mean it. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. Thank you for believing I was worth saving. Thank you for giving me a chance to become who I was always meant to be." Damien pulled her closer. "You did that yourself, Elena. I just held your hand while you figured it out." Elena smiled in the darkness. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had done it herself. But having him there had made all the difference. She closed her eyes, feeling safe and loved, and finally at peace. The girl who'd been destroyed was gone. In her place was a woman who'd rebuilt herself from the ground up, who'd turned her pain into power, who'd refused to let her past define her future. Elena Vale, had survived. And more than that, she'd thrived. And that was the greatest victory of all.